Welcome to Lesaffre's VR Experience. Before we start, let's go through a few things. In this tutorial, we will teach you the basic interactions. Look at your hand. See them? That's how you will interact. It is simple. Just stretch your hands and move around to interact with the world around you. Throughout the experience, there are the small circles around objects that tell you two things. First, this is the object you need to interact with now. It also lets you know how to interact with the object. Start by pressing the button. Great! One of our very own packs of yeast has just dropped in front of you. Pick it up by pinching your hands. It is just like picking up something with your thumb and index finger. Once you grab it, place it on the indicator you'll see on your left. Great! You will see this indicator quite often. The indicator will let you know where to put objects you will be holding. Now, repeat the process one more time. Perfect. How about repeating it one last time? You did great. Now you're ready to enjoy Lesaffre's experience. On your left, you will find an exit button. You will find this button in all scenes. It will be the button you press once you are done in each scene. We hope you enjoyed the Lesaffre experience.
Over 7,000 employees, about 50 production sites across the world. Global, with a commercial presence in more than 170 countries. Lesaffre, a family-run enterprise which is a global industrial power. It's said that the Egyptians happened to discover the virtues of leavening in the art of bread making 4,800 years ago, an art that the Greeks and Romans later took credit for. In the middle of the 19th century, two men came together to establish a distillery in the northern part of France that would produce alcohol from grains and juniper berries. Another Louis, Pasteur, introduced yeast as a key element in the process of fermentation. Lesaffre broke new ground with instant dried yeast and its baking center network. The company started making real progress in 1963 through exports. It followed this up with acquisitions that gradually opened the doors to the international market. The company became a force to be reckoned with in the world of baking and the agro-processing industries, and its brands became a point of reference across the 5 continents until it became the world leader in these domains. Yeast is Lesaffre.
Welcome to the family. In this experience, you will be introduced to 3 main locations. The office, which you are currently in, the factory, where the yeast is fermented, packed, and stored, finally, the baking center, which is key for Lesaffre's marketing. This is Lesaffre's admin office, where all the service functions reside. In a bit, we will be introducing you to all the functions that are present at the office, the factory, and the baking center. But first, sanitize your hand and wear your face mask to keep yourself and your colleagues safe. Great! Now in front of you, you will find 3 CDs. Each CD contains information about the hierarchy and functions present in either the baking center, the factory, or the office. Pick a CD and place it in the projector to know more about the functions in each of Lesaffre's locations. The factory manager is responsible for all the production of the different kinds of yeast, water waste treatment, maintenance, and health and safety environmental. Let's go through some of those functions. Maintenance and investment include engineers that focus on the overall project, applying preventive maintenance, as well as engineers that support in the electrical, automation, and mechanical technical support. The quality function focuses on the quality assurance in factories and labs to ensure consistent and up-to-standard quality for Lesaffre's products, employees, and customers. The Baking Center is Lesaffre's main marketing hub. It focuses on inviting craft bakers to explore Lesaffre's various yeast catalog, as well as show the quality of baking achieved by Lesaffre's products. This is the organizational chart. Our general manager overlooks all the functions. They have 3 offices, one at the admin office, one at the factory, and one at the baking center. The admin office includes the various support functions including finance, HR and admin crew, purchasing and commercial team, supply chain, and molasses and derivative purchases. Let's go through them one by one. Finance are responsible for budgeting, accounting, and treasury. They also provide regular reports and financial analysis for the company. Within the department also resides the IT. The IT supports the company and team with all the technical support they need. HR and admin crew are responsible for many things that include but are not limited to payroll, compensation, and hiring. The function is also responsible to make sure each and every employee is learning and developing. They also further push their employees to take initiatives, as one of their main values is entrepreneurship. Purchasing is responsible for the purchase of technical equipment such as factory machine spare parts or even a new machine. They are further responsible for the purchasing of raw and packaging material. Our commercial team is responsible for various things that include marketing, sales, and customer relations. They are also responsible for the baking center as one of the main marketing hubs for Lesaffre. Supply chain are responsible for planning of supply, logistics, and warehousing. They're responsible for managing orders on the system. Derivative and molasses are responsible for the purchase of derivative products and molasses for the yeast pitching. Great! Now you are familiar with all the functions that happen in Lesaffre. Let's continue our tour and visit the factory. On your left, there is an exit button. Press it to go to the factory.
Welcome to Lesaffre Factory. Our first factory was built in 1853. 160 years old does not happen by chance. At Lesaffre, we have been driven by a tradition of social and environmental responsibility for a long time. Our factories include a lot of facilities that help our people in their health, productivity, and their development. Here at Lesaffre, we are experts in the fermentation of yeast. Fermenting means organizing and controlling the environment while providing high-quality yeast cells with the materials they need, like sugar and oxygen, for example, in order for them to generate many other cells. At Lesaffre, we create all the right conditions for fermentation, enabling the yeast cells to multiply. Let's learn how. Safety comes first. Before using the facility, cleaning and sanitizing the hands is very important, as well as wearing the proper protective gear to ensure the well-being of our people and our clients. Please sanitize your hands in the sink and put on your protective gear. Great! Now you're ready to learn how yeast is made in our factories. It all begins in what we call the strain bank, where the different strains of yeast cells are stored at minus 80 degrees Celsius. Open the strain bank and pick up a yeast culture medium and place it in the incubator. The incubator has a favorable temperature for the yeast fermentation process. Great! Now the yeast cells in the incubator are ready to be transferred into a larger environment. Transfer the yeast to the silos. Do this by removing the yeast culture medium from the incubator and placing it in the "to the silos" cabinet. Perfect. The purpose of these stages is to successively increase the biomass, namely the quantity of cells produced, in order to reach a sufficient quantity of yeast. Pitch a fermenter to obtain the first generation of yeast. Do this by adding water, nutrients, and air to help increase quantity. Great! You have achieved a sufficient quantity of yeast. The end result is several tons of yeast. This is generated in just a few days. Now use the centrifugal separator to separate the yeast from the culture medium in the silo. The output of the centrifugal separator is a cream, which is cooled and stored in chilled conditions at 4 degrees Celsius to ensure that the yeast cells are inactive in this form. The yeast can then be processed in order to get sold. At this stage, it can already be sold as liquid yeast by preparing just the cream yeast. This liquid yeast is then sold in 3 forms, either in castaglia, a refrigerated bag, or a container 0.1 to 1 meter cubed, or in 25-ton trucks for very large bakeries. We also market another type of yeast, namely fresh or compressed yeast. The yeast cream is passed through a vacuum filter, a machine which sucks away the liquid, making it possible to obtain a fine layer of yeast. This layer is then processed in a mixer which compresses the yeast. Finally, the compressed yeast is cut into cubes and packed. In order to obtain dry yeast, the yeast cream is passed through a vacuum filter once again, and then an extruder and a drying plant, making it possible to remove more water from the yeast layer. Finally, the yeast is packed and stored in the warehouse before being sent out for delivery. Congrats! You made your first pack of yeast. You did a lot of work. Make sure to take your lunch break at 2 p.m. and use the bathrooms if needed. There is also a prayer area if you would like to pray. Once you're ready, point at the door and click, and you will be on your way to the baking center.
Welcome to Lesaffre's Baking Center. The concept of the baking center was created from the first technical center in 1974 in France at the headquarters. Today, we have more than 25 centers throughout the world in 5 continents. This concept provides a notion of service to our customers, both the industrial and the craft bakers. The expertise of the baking center cover yeast products and ingredients with strong notion of service, technical support, and product development. It is always direct with the industrial and craft bakers. As always, safety and hygiene are of utmost importance, so please wash your hands and wear the proper gear to start baking. Great! Now that you're ready to bake, there is a prepared dough in the mixer. Use the mixer to mix the dough. Great! Now place the dough on the counter to add the proper mixture to it before proofing. Perfect! Now place the dough in the proofer. The proofer is a warming chamber that encourages fermentation of dough by yeast through warm temperatures and controlled humidity. Great! Now the dough is ready to be shaped the way you desire. Put the dough in the dough shaper and choose what you would like to bake, from baladi bread, baguettes, pizzas, or croissants. Great choice! Pick the shaped dough and place it in the oven to bake. That's wonderful. Place it on the validator to know how great your baking is. You did wonderful. When you're ready, press the exit button to go to the office.